Hello everyone, welcome to Florence and welcome to the afternoon session. My name is Joyce Ellimson. I'm a further education lecturer in the UK. I teach maths to students who are 16-year-olds and above. My students could be as old as 56, but the youngest is 16. I'm also a teacher trainee mentor. I'm also involved in the quality of the delivery. I actually deliver staff development as well. So my presentation today, my paper today is about the insights into post-16 teacher training curriculum, strengths and challenges for pre-service teachers. Although I'm not a teacher trainer, I'm heavily involved in the coordination of the mentoring of teacher trainees. So when I say trainees or students, they mean the same thing in this context. I'm actually here on the platform of my private practice, and I'm also a member of the Learning Teaching Network, which was developed by some universities, some lecturers in the University of Greenwich. The network is based in Sweden. I have a blog, nothing much that may be of immediate interest to you. The blog is actually set up to support teacher trainees and also those who are newly qualified, who are actually struggling. You'll come across what I mean as we go through the course of the paper. So the purpose of this paper today really is to raise an awareness on the strengths of the teacher training curriculum, and also to be aware of the inadequacies in the teacher training program, and also to be aware of the disparities between the teacher training curriculum and real-time practice, and how we can actually proffer recommendations to cover up the disparities. We bear with us. Should it be right now? So if you are interested in teacher training in the UK, there are 4 routes, and it depends on the age groups you want to teach. So we've got a general qualification called PGCE, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Over the years this has changed, but generally it's the PGCE. You need to have a degree of some form before you can be enrolled in the PGCE. And there are 4 different routes depending on the age group you want to teach. So we've got the primary education, secondary, further education, which is known as tertiary education in other parts of the world, and of course higher education, which takes care of teaching in higher education institutions. So my paper is about teacher training in the further education sector. The further education sector is generally called post-compulsory education and training in the UK. So if you do complete your PGCE, you will have the PSET in the abbreviation, which shows that you're only allowed to teach in the further education sector, which is for students who are actually 16-year-olds and above. So let us take a look very quickly at an overview of the curriculum within this teacher training. So you have professional development portfolio packs 1 and 2. So this is basically about your development as a teacher, the ability to actually go into the classroom to teach your teaching techniques, assessment procedures, and things like that. You're going to do that over 2 semesters, which is from September to February, and then from March to the end of May. We've got theories of learning, behavior, and inclusion, planning, teaching, learning, and assessment, policy and curriculum design for inclusive practice, wider professional development, research and scholarship for the development of subject specialist expertise. Now this overview has been put together by looking at two very popular universities in the southeast area of England. That's universities of Greenwich and also Christ Church University in Kent. So this is basically the curriculum, and this is done over a whole year. When I say a whole year, I mean from September all the way through to June or thereabouts. Part of this PDP, which is part 1 and 2, is actual teaching practice. You're supposed to have done 120 hours of teaching. You would have been observed by your lecturer, you would have been observed by a mentor, you would have also prepared observation notes by going into other qualified teachers' classroom. It's quite rigorous. And of course there are enhanced studies. We'll talk about this a little bit more. Okay, so that was the curriculum. Every trainee would have had to fulfill all the criteria in that curriculum. But this is the in-service practice. As an in-service teacher, a qualified teacher, you have group tutoring responsibilities, which means that you're allocated a group, you teach the group, you ensure that all the units have been achieved, you take care of them, and you're the group tutor, you collect their profile, you look after them, and you ensure that each of them achieves. And then we've got administrative duties and meetings, very typical. We've got pastoral guidance, meetings, interventions with students at risk. When we say students at risk, we mean students who are very likely not to complete the course. Some of these students might be those from dysfunctional backgrounds, students who are just enrolled in students on the course simply because they want to enjoy certain benefits from the government. And we do provide benefits. Some of the benefits are means tested. So we've got to ensure that every student achieves on the course. So it's quite a lot of work for the qualified teacher who is also a group tutor. Monitoring of attendance and punctuality. We have serious problems in further education in the UK. We have attendance issues because some of the students come from different backgrounds. Some of them live far away. Some of them even haven't got money to be able to take transportation to the college. And of course it affects their punctuality as well. Some of them are mothers. Some of them have quite a lot of responsibilities. So we've got to be monitoring this all the time. Assessment procedures, parents' reports, the usual normal lesson plan which is expected of every teacher, course outline and improvisation of resources. All these things are ticked and checked. So this is the real practical experience of teachers in further education in the UK. More in-service experience. So in addition to all those responsibilities we've just spoken about, there's also compulsory participation in CPD events to improve pedagogy. What do we mean by CPD? Somebody mentioned that this morning. In the UK we know it as continuing professional development. We have that incorporated in the academic calendar. In primary schools it's called insert days. In secondary schools it's called professional development days. In further education it's called CPD days. So we might have 2 in half a term. Half a term is 6 weeks. So we could have 4 in a term. It's incorporated. It's ticked and checked. We've got registers of teachers who attend this. And it's closely monitored. I mean, it's one of the things that I really, really love about British education. There's always a room for improvement. So all these events are to improve your pedagogical practice. Updates on e-learning and innovative practices. So if there's any examples of best practice by a tutor, other tutors are expected to glean from it, move it forward and implement those practices. Any ideas on e-learning is meant to be embraced and implemented in the classroom. There are lots of observations, In your country, you probably call them inspection. In the UK, we also have inspection by the inspection watchdog called Ofsted. But within each institution, we have observation policies. Teachers could be observed twice or thrice a year, or even more than that, depending on the quality of the observation. Observation is actually graded from 1 to 4. Number 1 meaning outstanding, 2 very good, 3 controversial, in the sense that it used to be satisfactory, but a couple of years ago it was changed to capacity to improve. And then 4 is inadequate, which means you're just not a good teacher. Your teaching and learning procedures are not good enough, and you could be sacked if your teaching is continually observed and graded as a grade 4. So you can imagine the pressure on teachers. So all those observations are expected to monitor and raise the quality of teaching and learning. Sometimes it's viewed as a punitive measure. And then we've got compliance of institutional policies on punctuality and attendance. Each college has its own policy on punctuality. In the college where I teach, if a student is 15 minutes late, we've got to go into the register and log how many minutes that student was late. In some colleges, it might be a different policy. Late is late. Yeah. And we also have attendance. In my college, if a student doesn't turn up for less than 95% of the time, we've got the right to withdraw the student. So these things are closely monitored. And then of course we've got safeguarding. Safeguarding is very serious. If as a teacher you observe that your students are not very well, if a student is vulnerable, if they have very low self-esteem, or you have any reason to suspect that that student is going through abuse, you've got to report that to the safeguarding officer. We have safeguarding policies. All these things are what further education teachers need to be observing and complying with in their practice. And then we've got equality and diversity. If a student reports a teacher that his needs are not being catered to because he falls under the 9 protected characteristics of equality and diversity, that teacher could be called for disciplinary. There's quite a lot going on in the minds of further education teachers all the time while we are in practice. And then of course we've got blended learning and differentiation techniques. Teachers must implement these in the classroom. It's as if we have a set of criteria that needs to be ticked off. I'm really sorry, but that's the institutional mindset in further education in the UK. So in-service experience continues. In addition to that, we are under pressure to improve statistics from the previous year. And the statistics are, there's 4 of them. Attendance, so if attendance generally last year was 90%, you're under pressure to improve it to 91% at least. Punctuality, retention, and achievement. Retention simply means the number of students who enrolled in September must be nearly equal to the same number of students who achieved by September. It's not often like that. Of course, we've got dropouts, and we've got valid reasons for students to drop out. But we've got to make sure that it reaches the national benchmark. The national benchmark in further education is 85% in the UK. So there's quite a lot of responsibilities. Sometimes we have an English saying that says we're bending over backwards to ensure that students achieve. And then of course we've got success. Please, if you're interested in knowing the difference between achievement and success, we can discuss that later. You'll be very shocked at the minimal difference, but it's a managerial issue. I'm not a manager, thankfully. So, have you noticed any disparities between the content of the teacher training curriculum and the in-service practice? Have you noticed anything, or you haven't noticed at all? Do you see the wide gap between what is taught and what is practiced? How can these disparities be addressed? Well, when this complaint was made, they decided, oh, don't worry, we will have a mentor appointed for you. You're in training right now. We will have a mentor. That person would be your mentor. But look at what happens to the mentor. The mentor barely has any remuneration at all. In some instances, they might decide, okay, you're a mentor, you teach 23 hours a week. we're going to reduce your teaching by 3 hours. That's your remuneration. And in cases where the institution provides remuneration, it could be £500 a year. So if you meet with your trainee 2 hours a week and then 36 weeks a year, that's 72 hours. So if you divide 500 by 72, it's less than £7 per hour of meeting up with your trainee or your mentee. Is that good value for money? How much does an average teacher earn per hour in Europe? About £28 an hour. That's an insult. Unless some people like us, we just want to mentor. So we'll probably do it for nothing. I'm quite happy to be a mentor. So there are other similar responsibilities. There's low morale from the mentor to the mentee. The mentee is also the trainee. There's sometimes there's some resistance, and of course there's reluctance. There's a strained relationship sometimes. And then Hattie was quoted this morning by Aina. Hattie said, well-trained teachers can effectively manage different ages and learning needs through support by their school administration, an indicator of good institutional performance. So these issues we've discussed vary from college to college. Where there's very good management, it's well managed. Where it doesn't exist, then it's really poor. So we've got consequences for the newly qualified teacher, and these are the consequences. It means that the trainee is poorly prepared for the career. There's a large teacher turnover in the UK. 40% of newly qualified teachers exit from the profession within the first 5 years. So it won't be surprising if you come across a teacher who said, oh, I'm a qualified teacher, but no, I don't teach. It's not unusual. And then, of course, there's micromanagement of the educational system by the government. There are lots and lots of changes. As you get used to one change, as you get used to one thing, another change comes in very quickly. So it's very difficult to manage. So there are more consequences, there's lots of teacher absences, and of course, finally you've got the stressed teacher. The teacher absences in the UK is about 57%. Very poor. What do you think happens to the students? Very poor learning outcomes. Learning outcomes are not maximized at all. And then sometimes some of the CPDs that we attend are completely unnecessary, like team building exercise. What's that? And then of course we've got the stressed teacher. That is a typical picture of a teacher in the UK. So some of you seem to be aware of these things. Okay. Over 140 years ago, a network was developed. It was called, I can't remember now, but I can discuss that with you later on. Anyway, we've got the Teacher Support Network. The Teacher Support Network was set up to support teachers who were very stressed. In 2001, there was a hotline dedicated to teachers in the UK. They can call them up anytime within 24 hours to discuss their problems. It mainly is all about stress, and you've got all those statistics there. So these are some of the comments from newly qualified teachers. I'm going to go over time by 1 or 2 minutes. Please permit me, please. It's a series of tick box exercises. I'm sure that's becoming familiar now, with no real structured support on a day-to-day basis. I was not well prepared for classroom management, behavior management, and the sheer amount of data that teachers have to deal with and churn out. Working a 60+ hour week was expected. No guidance in doing a good job without missing out on sleep. Another one said, the reality is that I feel that sometimes I was taught to pass my PGCE rather than how to be a real life teacher. I don't feel that my training was at all inadequate, but constant new initiatives have made adequate training almost impossible. And this one is from another one who said she barely had any teaching practice, which has not really stood her in good stead for her current role as a teacher in her specialist area. And she understands from her training that she will have an induction and a mentor, and none of that happened, and several times she wanted to quit. These are statements made by real-life trainees. Okay, so these are just some facts. We can look at that later on. Okay, so we're aware of the disparities. What do I think can be done? This is just worldwide teacher absence data. What can be done? It's really simple. It's not rocket science. When trainees are training, there should be some reflection of real-time practice. And this is what constitutes real-time practice. Participation in student recruitment and induction program, right from the very start of the academic year. Pastoral support and guidance training, awareness of exam bodies. We have about 15 exam bodies in the UK. Are you aware of their procedures? Are you aware of their specifications, requirements? CPD events geared towards improving practice, not just team building exercises. Incorporation of innovative practices. All these things should be embedded in the curriculum, not separate. If it's going to take 2 years for somebody to train as a teacher, so be it. Why are we churning out half-baked teachers? Blended learning and updates of teaching techniques. Also, I've included awareness and compliance of institutional policies and procedures. Each institution has its own policies and procedures. There's nothing wrong in ensuring that while they're in placement in the college, that they are made aware of all these policies. Incorporation of equality and diversity. Set targets to improve on previous year statistics. What are those statistics? Retention, achievement, success, punctuality, and attendance. How do we improve? Are they just there for us to view? Participation in CPD events. There's nothing wrong if a trainee teacher comes into a CPD event. There's nothing wrong at all. Okay, so UNESCO is aware of it, so it's not just a very local UK problem. And it's becoming like a worldwide problem. I wanted to show you the advocacy toolkits developed by UNESCO, and we can just have a look at some statistics. On pages 3 and 4, please. So there's still a great need for teachers, and those are all the issues that teachers are going through worldwide. Minimal teacher training is there. It's not good enough worldwide. Our responsibilities are expanding beyond the traditional. Can we just scroll down a little bit more? Insecure contracts, inadequate salaries. There's so much going on. So why am I a teacher still? It's because I love young people and I make a positive difference in their lives. And I suppose for many of you, that's the same driving motive for carrying on in your roles. Well done for choosing this noble profession. Thank you very much.